She didn't even take off her shoes. Walked right in, humming some song I didn't recognize, coat still buttoned, suitcase barely rolled through the doorway. Her eyes sparkled like she'd just won a promotion, like 3 nights away with her team had refreshed her soul or something. But the smile? It died the second she saw what was on the table. Just one manila envelope. Unlabeled. Unopened. She blinked once. Then again. Her hand froze on the suitcase handle. "What's this?" she asked, forcing a fake little laugh. I didn't answer. Just nodded toward the chair across from me. "Might want to sit down." She didn't. She stood there, tense, like a deer on the edge of traffic, not sure whether to run or lie. And when I didn't speak again, she reached for the envelope. That's when her hands started shaking. Inside, printed screenshots. 15 of them. Photos. Dates. Hotel check-ins. A receipt from a rooftop bar in Portland, not Seattle, where her work retreat supposedly was. A blurry shot of her at the airport. With him. Arm in arm. The timestamp said 2:14 a.m. She wasn't even supposed to be flying that day. And the last page? A photo she didn't know existed. Herself, leaning in for a kiss in front of the elevator mirror. His hands on her waist. Her eyes closed. I took that one myself. Because I followed her. She finally looked up at me and whispered, "You followed me?" I nodded. I had to. Her face crumpled. Not in guilt, in anger. She threw the envelope down like it was covered in poison. "You spy on me now?" she hissed. "Are you insane?" I didn't answer. What could I say? That I hadn't slept in 3 days? That I stopped eating the moment her location pinged 150 miles off course? That I sat in a rental car for 11 hours, watching her laugh like a teenager with a man who wasn't me? No, I didn't say any of that. Instead, I handed her the second envelope. The smaller one. She hesitated. Her fingers grazed it like she already knew what was inside. This one had her name on it. Typed. It was the divorce papers. She didn't even open it. She just sat down. Slowly. Her face drained of everything. And I said, "Start talking." At first, she just sat there, frozen, like her brain had blue-screened. Her lips were slightly open, eyes darting between me and the envelope, like maybe she could unsee what was already done. Then, out of nowhere, she let out this dry, pathetic little laugh and shook her head, like I was the one being ridiculous. "I was going to tell you," she said, voice hoarse. I just didn't know how. I stared at her in disbelief. That was her opening move? That's what she thought would smooth over being caught red-handed with another man. After lying for weeks and sneaking around with a burner phone I later found hidden inside her makeup bag? "You were going to tell me?" I repeated. "Before or after you spend another work weekend in his bed?" She winced at that. Good. I wanted it to sting. I wanted her to feel at least 1% of the pain that's been chewing me alive from the inside out ever since I followed her Lyft ride from the airport and saw them check in together, laughing. Like I never existed. Like the last 7 years of our marriage were just a long, elaborate warm-up to this twisted circus she was now starring in. "Meryl," I said quieter this time, "how long?" She looked down at the table, then whispered, "About 5 months." That was the first real blow. I actually leaned back in my chair. 5 months. That's nearly half a year. Half a year of her making me think I was the problem. Half a year of her mood swings, late meetings, exhaustion, blaming me for being distant. When really, she was just using that time to build a second life. A separate, private, intimate world that had no room for me in it. "I didn't plan for it to happen," she said, eyes glassy now. He's just someone I met at the seminar last winter. It started out harmless. Talking. Drinks. Then it just grew." "Oh, it grew," I snapped. "Yeah, I can tell. He seems really comfortable grabbing your hips in elevators." I wasn't proud of my sarcasm. But at that point, I was balancing on the knife edge of collapse. I was trying not to scream. Or cry. Or beg her to tell me this was all some kind of sick joke. "You have no idea what it's been like," she muttered. I laughed, bitterly. "No idea? Meryl, I've been sitting in this house for months wondering what I did wrong. I thought I was going crazy. I was researching therapists. I was blaming myself while you were out there living your double life." Then I stood up. I couldn't sit anymore. My legs were jittery, adrenaline was spiking, and I felt like I was going to crawl out of my own skin. But that's when she finally broke. Tears. Real ones. The kind that spill before you even realize you're crying. And with them came the truth I wasn't ready for. She said, "I didn't just cheat on you. I think I fell in love with him. Everything stopped. The clock ticking. My breath. My heartbeat. All of it, just frozen in the silence that followed those words. She had just detonated the last piece of me I was trying to hold together. And I still hadn't told her what I did while she was gone. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table or throw the mug like they do in the movies. I just stood there in complete silence, staring at the woman I'd built a life with, wondering how I could feel so many things at once. Rage, sorrow, humiliation, disgust, disbelief, while still managing to hold myself together. She buried her face in her hands like that would somehow erase the last 30 seconds. Like the sentence, "I think I fell in love with him," hadn't just shattered every remaining piece of the trust one had left. I wanted to ask if that was supposed to make things better, or worse. I wanted to ask how long she'd been planning her escape. But instead, I said nothing. Instead, I walked out of the room. I didn't go far, just into the hallway. I needed a wall to lean on. I needed a breath that didn't feel like breathing through smoke. And more than anything, I needed to remind myself not to give in. Not yet. Because what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that while she was off playing house with her secret boyfriend, I had made some very quiet moves of my own. See, I wasn't just sitting around crying into throw pillows while she was out networking. I had suspicions, and for once in my spineless little life, I acted on them. I started digging. I hired someone. Yeah, I know that sounds dramatic, but I wasn't about to keep living in the dark while she gaslit me every time she forgot to call or came home smelling like someone else's cologne. So while she was gone this past weekend, I didn't just sit in the house like a good, heartbroken idiot. I met with the investigator. In person. He handed me a file. Thick, detailed, brutal. Photos of her at restaurants. Video of her holding hands with a man I'd never seen before. License plate records. Credit card activity. Receipts from places we never went together. The kind of file that confirms not only betrayal, but premeditated, long-term replacement. And here's the kicker, the guy she was seeing? He's not some hotshot tech exec or sexy marketing guru. He's married. With kids. Yeah, a father of 3. A guy who lives in the suburbs and coaches Little League. And his wife. Well, I met her too. We sat in the same cafe where our cheating spouses once shared their first business lunch. She cried. I cried. Then we compared notes. Turns out, we were both being played like background characters while our spouses lived out their little fantasy drama. So, I took her help. I made copies of everything. Every photo. Every message. Every receipt. I made 2 folders. One for me. One for Meryl's boss. Because oh yeah, she wasn't just cheating on me. She was cheating with a senior director in her own company. A guy who signs off on her expense reports. A guy she had previously called strictly professional. I stepped back into the room and found her still sitting there, wiping at her eyes like it was going to make any difference. And that's when I calmly said, "Meryl, you're not just a liar. You're about to be unemployed, too." She blinked. What? I tossed the second folder on the table, the one labeled with her company's name. Her hands shook as she opened it. I didn't say a word. I just watched. Page after page. Her face paled. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked up at me with wide, glassy eyes. "You wouldn't," she whispered. I tilted my head. Oh, I already did. And her world started crumbling. Meryl opened the folder like it might explode. Her fingers hovered, trembling, before she finally flipped the first page. And I saw it in her eyes. The moment recognition set in. The logo. The internal email address. The formal cover letter addressed to her department's HR director. The entire packet was ready, neatly arranged, fully sourced, and already emailed 24 hours ago with a red receipt. She flipped faster now, scanning the screenshots. The hotel reservations made on her corporate travel card. The room service bills signed by both names. The photos. The time-stamped videos. One especially damning clip taken from across a restaurant patio, where she and her strictly professional colleague shared a little kiss between dessert and espresso. She looked up at me like a cornered animal. Not furious. Not even ashamed. Just completely, finally afraid. "You sent this?" she asked, voice barely audible. I nodded once. "Yesterday, while you were getting drinks with your team." She swallowed hard. "You don't know what you've done." That made me laugh. I actually laughed. Loud, bitter, exhausted. I had spent so long tiptoeing around her moods, apologizing for things I didn't even do, second-guessing myself every time she twisted a story. And now? Now she was warning me. I know exactly what I've done, I said. And I'm not even close to finished. She stood suddenly, the chair screeching behind her. Her voice got louder, sharper. This affects my career, Nick. Do you even understand that? I could lose everything. My stomach turned at the irony. You mean like I lost my marriage? My peace of mind? My sleep for the last 5 months? Yeah, I understand the concept. I made a mistake, she cried. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I walked to the counter, poured myself the cold remains of this morning's coffee, and took a sip. It tasted like ash, but I needed something to do with my hands, so I didn't punch a hole through the drywall. You didn't mean for it to go this far, I repeated slowly. Yet you had no problem letting me kiss you goodnight while he was still texting you from a hotel bed. She froze. The silence after that hung so heavy. It felt like the house itself was holding its breath. Then she whispered something I didn't expect. His wife knows. I turned slowly. What? She knows, she said again. I told her 2 nights ago. He was going to leave her, and I was going to tell you when I got back. You were going to tell me what exactly? I asked. That you destroyed 2 marriages instead of just 1. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Nothing meaningful, anyway. Because in that moment, I realized something awful. Meryl hadn't come home to confess. She hadn't come back out of guilt or love or even decency. She came back because she thought she had time. She thought she could spin the story, soften the edges, and land on her feet. That if she confessed first, she'd be seen as brave, maybe even forgiven. But I'd changed the script. I'd taken away the illusion of control. I'd exposed the truth before she could weaponize it. And now, she was unraveling. I'm not the villain you're making me out to be, she said, trembling. No, I replied. You're worse. Because you knew you were hurting me, and you kept going anyway. Her eyes filled with tears again. But I didn't feel sympathy this time. I felt relief. Because for once, I wasn't the one begging. And she was about to find out what real consequences feel like. I stood there, watching her unravel like cheap ribbon, and I swear, some broken part of me waited for her to snap back into the woman I married. Just for a second. Some final flicker of the person who used to text me at lunch just to say she missed me. Who used to cry watching dumb animal videos. Who made me believe we were permanent. But all I saw now was someone scrambling to preserve a version of herself that no longer existed. She kept pacing, muttering to herself like she could think her way out of this. You don't understand what you've done, she said again, louder this time. It's not just my job. It's his job. His kids. Everything. You've nuked everything. I tilted my head. No, you nuked everything. I just turned the lights on. Her eyes narrowed. You're proud of this? You want to ruin 5 lives just to get even? And that's when something inside me snapped. I slammed the mug down so hard on the counter it cracked right down the middle. My voice came out raw, louder than I meant it. Get even? Meryl, you were planning a future with him. I was supposed to just sit here, clueless, while you tiptoed out of this marriage like a coward? She flinched, finally silent. I lowered my voice again. You don't get to cheat, lie, and then cry foul when it costs you something. She tried a different tone, softer now, like she remembered how to manipulate me. Nick, please. You don't want to be this guy. You don't want to burn everything down. We can still talk through this. Maybe take some time. Step back from all this madness. I almost laughed. The gaslighting was so casual, so automatic, like she truly believed she could still pivot this, redirect it, control the outcome. But what she didn't know was that this whole thing was already public. Her company's internal ethics committee had received my packet, and so had the anonymous inbox at their competitor, where, just so happened, Meryl had been quietly interviewing behind her boss's back. Yeah, I found the email chain. I included it, forwarded, all of it. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because I needed her to understand. This wasn't just about broken vows. This was about character. You think this is just revenge? I said, this is exposure. You wore a mask for months, maybe years. I'm just helping people see who's underneath. She opened her mouth to argue, but her phone buzzed. Once, twice, then a flood. She glanced down. I watched her face contort. Her workgroup chat. Her boss. Her sister. Even a message from the wife of her lover. One word. Coward. She looked at me, voice cracking. What did you do? I just stared back. I told the truth. And for the first time, she looked truly terrified. Because she realized I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't breaking. I was done. And I wasn't the only one. Meryl stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, her expression spiraling from shock to dread as message after message poured in. I watched her tap frantically, trying to stop the bleeding. But it was already too late. The group chats had exploded. Screenshots were flying. And her carefully constructed double life was caving in from every direction. She looked up at me like I had just set her house on fire. You involved his wife? I didn't even blink. She deserved to know. Same as me. Nick, she's unstable, she hissed. You don't understand what she's capable of. No. I cut in. You don't understand what happens when people get pushed too far. I meant every word. Because what came next even I wasn't prepared for. About an hour after the explosion, just when I thought the adrenaline would finally wear off, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. At first I didn't answer, but something told me to. And when I picked up, I recognized the voice instantly. Her name was Lynette, the wife of Meryl's lover. I'd met her once at a corporate holiday event years ago. Quiet, polite, faded into the background while Meryl did all the fake laughing. But today, she didn't sound quiet. She sounded nuclear. I want to meet, she said coldly. Tonight. In person. No lawyers. Just the two of us. You deserve to know what your wife didn't tell you. I agreed without hesitation. When I told Meryl I was going, her face turned white. Nick, don't. Please. She's not okay. I stared her down. Neither am I. I met Lynette that evening at a tiny cafe downtown. She was already sitting, calm and composed, but her eyes were the kind of tired you can't fake, like someone who hadn't slept in weeks because every time she closed her eyes, she saw betrayal playing on a loop. She didn't waste time. They've been planning this for a year, she said flatly. It wasn't just an affair. It was a transition. Your wife and my husband have been slowly cutting us out, setting up secret accounts, lining up apartments, moving money. I felt my stomach twist. Wait, money. She nodded and slid a flash drive across the table. He used my name to open 2 of them. I've already filed fraud reports. Thought you might want the rest. I didn't even know what to say. A part of me had assumed this would all just fall apart on its own, but hearing it like this, with documentation, with intent, made everything worse. They wanted to take the kids, Lynette said suddenly. He told me last week that I was emotionally unstable and that he was going to file for full custody. That was his exit plan. Destroy me, marry your wife, and play the victim. That's when I realized this wasn't just 2 selfish people sneaking around for excitement. They were building something. Planning it. Cruelly, methodically, and at our expense. I hope you sent that file to your lawyer, I said quietly. She shook her head. Not yet. I wanted you to see it first. Because you still have time to protect yourself. I left that cafe feeling colder than I'd ever felt in my life. Back home, Meryl was waiting by the door. Pale. Sleepless. She opened her mouth to ask where I'd been. I just walked right past her. She followed me down the hall, whispering, Nick, please. I turned. You had a plan, right? I said. To leave me. Start over. Rebuild your perfect life. She looked down. Good, I said. Because I have a plan now, too. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the living room couch, the same couch we used to curl up on and watch old sitcoms together, and stared at the ceiling fan for hours, wondering how many moments I had misread. How many nights she had climbed into bed next to me with someone else's scent still on her skin. In the morning, she tried again. Came in softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Can we talk? I didn't even look at her. I'm done talking. Everything now goes through lawyers. Her voice cracked. You're not even going to give me a chance to. No. I snapped, finally turning to face her. You had chances. You had months of chances. You made a choice. Now I'm making mine. She froze. Then, her expression shifted. Not sadness. Not guilt. Panic. Because she finally realized I wasn't bluffing anymore. I stood up, walked past her again, and this time, I headed straight for the home office. I opened the locked drawer she didn't even know I had a key for. Pulled out a folder with every document I had quietly compiled. Joint accounts, shared property, prenup clauses she forgot existed, and the draft from my attorney. I had filed. 3 days ago. Before she even stepped off the plane. She stood in the doorway, shaking her head. You went behind my back? I looked at her, exhausted. You're seriously accusing me of that? She stepped into the room like she didn't even recognize the house anymore. Maybe she didn't. The woman who thought she could control every conversation, every reaction, every version of reality. She was losing grip. Fast. I handed her the draft divorce packet. You'll find the terms fair. I'm not coming for blood. I just want clean separation. She skimmed it. Wait, this says you want the house. I nodded. I paid for most of it. The prenup gives me leverage. Plus, you'll need a new place to live anyway, assuming your boyfriend's wife hasn't burned all his stuff in the yard yet. Her jaw tightened. And I'm freezing the accounts, I added. The ones you don't know I know about. Don't bother running to your little secret stash. Already flagged with the bank. She collapsed onto the chair, eyes wide and furious. You're trying to destroy me. I leaned on the desk, arms crossed. You destroyed yourself. I'm just not saving you from it this time. She sat in silence for a long time. Then something strange happened. Her eyes didn't tear up. They narrowed. Cold. Calculating. And in a voice colder than ice, she said, You think I'm going down alone? There it was. The shift. The mask falling off. The part of her I had only seen glimpses of, the ruthless version, the one who could live a double life and call it a mistake. But I didn't flinch. You won't take me down, I said calmly. You'll try, but I have nothing left to lose. And you? You still care how people see you. Her silence told me I was right. The game had changed. She no longer wanted to fix anything. Now she wanted to win. For weeks, things got ugly. The legal back and forth. Her sudden mood swings. One day she was sobbing, begging to fix it. The next, she was cold, calculated, trying to shift blame. She tried to twist the story for friends and family, claiming I overreacted, that it was just an emotional connection, that I humiliated her publicly. But I didn't engage. Not anymore. I had spent so long trying to make her happy, trying to be the husband who forgave, who fixed things, who didn't make a scene. And all it got me was years of slow erosion and one day of nuclear fallout. So instead of fighting fire with fire, I stepped away. I signed the divorce papers. I let go of the house. I gave her the car. The thing is, I didn't need to win anymore, because I wasn't in the fight anymore. I moved in with a college friend for a while, then found a small apartment near the edge of town. It was nothing fancy, but it was mine. I bought a cheap coffee table, a plant I named Kevin, and for the first time in years, I sat alone in peace. Not silence. Peace. Because when you stop chasing the person who broke you, you start finding pieces of yourself again. A few months later, I got a letter, handwritten, from Lynette, the other betrayed spouse. She said her divorce was finalized. She got custody. She started therapy. And she thanked me, not for revenge, but for telling the truth when nobody else would. That same week, I ran into a woman at a bookstore. Her name was Harper. She asked if I was okay because I accidentally dropped a book on my own foot. We laughed. We had coffee. No, I didn't fall in love instantly. This isn't some perfect movie ending. But I listened to her. She listened to me. We didn't talk about cheating or betrayal or lies. We talked about dumb movies and favorite cereals and books we never finished. And for the first time, it felt real. It felt simple. I'm still healing. I still flinch when the phone buzzes after midnight. I still wake up sometimes wondering how I missed all the signs. But I'm not angry anymore. Because sometimes the best revenge is not being bitter. It's being better. So if you're watching this, if you're in the middle of the fire right now, let me tell you something. You will get through it. You will find peace again. And one day, like me, you'll wake up and realize the worst day of your life wasn't the end. It was the beginning.